I was in the middle of scrolling through endless concert clips the other night, the kind where the algorithm knows you haven't slept and just feeds you blurry stadium footage from 5 different angles, and I landed on a video from Wembley Stadium that stopped me cold, not because of the lights or the outfit or the high note, but because of a name. A name that a very specific corner of the internet has been waiting to hear out of this particular mouth for nearly a decade, and when Harry Styles said it, according to fan videos that have now been viewed millions of times across every platform known to man, the collective sound of the crowd wasn't a cheer. It was a visceral, high-frequency gasp that sounded less like a pop concert and more like a plane dropping 30,000 feet in 5 seconds of turbulence. This is where the story gets sticky, because if you just saw the headline that says Harry mentioned Zayn at show, you might think, okay, cool, a little nod. But what sources close to the tour are suggesting, and what the deeper analysis of the setlist reveals, is that this was not a random, off-the-cuff ad-lib. It was a surgical insertion placed at a moment of maximum emotional resonance, designed to do something very specific to the room, and frankly, to the narrative that has been running on fumes since 2015. You have to understand the psychological architecture of a Harry Styles show to really get why this landed like a ton of bricks, because this isn't just a guy with a microphone singing songs about watermelon sugar. This is a masterclass in vibe control, and every single night he curates the energy of a small city. And according to reports from insiders who have watched this tour evolve across 3 continents, the moment in question happens during a song that is already a massive, tear-jerking, lighters-in-the-air anthem about longing and distance, and the kind of love that slips through your fingers because of bad timing. And right as the music swells to that peak where everyone is feeling a little too vulnerable and a little too nostalgic, he changes a single word in the lyric to a name that he hasn't publicly uttered on a stage of this magnitude since before the band went on hiatus. And the immediate effect, as seen in the shaky footage, is that the person next to the camera stops singing entirely and just screams, the kind of scream that suggests they have been holding their breath since the Obama administration. And look, I'm gonna level with you as someone who has covered entertainment long enough to know when I'm being emotionally manipulated by a really good showman, and I say this with the utmost respect because it's brilliant craftsmanship. This is not a reunion announcement. Let's just pump the brakes on the group chat rumors right now. No official statements have been made, and this is not confirmed to mean anything beyond the moment itself. But what it does is it opens a door that had been painted over with so many coats of PR beige that we forgot there was even a room behind it, and that is the curiosity engine that keeps you watching past the 30-second mark. Because if it wasn't about getting the band back together, and if it wasn't about promoting a new collaboration, because sources claim there is none in the works, then what was the real reason a performer who is famously meticulous about his stagecraft decided to let that particular ghost out of the box in front of 90,000 people? It gets even more interesting when you peel back the layer of fan speculation versus the actual timeline of events that have been reported in the last 6 months, because according to a couple of well-placed, albeit unnamed sources cited in a few of the larger music trades recently, there has been a quiet but notable thawing in the communication lines between several former members. Not a group chat full of memes and old tour photos, let's not get crazy, but a professional courtesy that had been absent for a very long time. And this mention, in the context of that thaw, reads less like a random slip of the tongue and more like a public acknowledgement that the door to mutual respect is at least ajar. And the reason that matters so much right now, specifically in the year 2026, is because we are currently living through what I can only describe as the great pop culture reconciliation era, where everyone from feuding reality stars to estranged bandmates are realizing that holding a grudge is bad for the brand and frankly exhausting for everyone involved. And the audience for this kind of content isn't just the die-hard fan who still has a cardboard cutout in their closet. It's the casual listener who remembers where they were when they heard that first solo album and felt a little bit of their youth evaporate into the ether. And this single name drop serves as a sort of closure coupon that the entire fandom gets to redeem instantly. Now, I'd be a terrible news commentator if I didn't point out the absolutely masterful level of restraint involved here, because if you watch the clip, and I've watched it enough times now that my algorithm thinks I'm applying for a job as a background dancer, he doesn't make eye contact with the camera. He doesn't pause for dramatic effect waiting for the roar. He just sings the name in the same breath as the rest of the verse, almost as if it's the most normal thing in the world. And that nonchalant delivery is precisely what sends the audience into orbit, because it's the contrast between the casual action and the cataclysmic reaction that makes the clip so shareable. And this is where my own personal opinion, just a little dash of human sarcasm here, creeps in.
I think there's a part of him that absolutely knows the internet is going to melt down, and I think he enjoys watching the dominoes fall from a safe distance while sipping a very expensive tea. And honestly, I respect the hustle, because in a world where most pop stars are begging you to stream their new single with 17 different versions of the same song, this guy just drops a first name like a depth charge and gets 3 days of headlines for free. And you can't buy that kind of organic reach. It's the kind of marketing that would make a Silicon Valley algorithm weep with envy. But let's circle back to the stakes that were established in those first 20 seconds, the major unanswered loop that we have to close before you click off to watch a video about a cat playing the piano. And the loop is this: why does the mention of this specific person carry so much more emotional weight than any of the other former bandmates? It's a question that gets to the heart of how we process group dynamics, because according to cultural analysts and a lot of people who have way too much time on their hands in the comment section, this particular relationship was always framed as the artistic friction point of the group, the one where the creative tension was most palpable and the departure felt less like a business decision and more like a philosophical divorce. And by acknowledging the name in a space that is defined by joy and unity, it rewrites a tiny piece of that historical narrative from one of conflict to one of simple, quiet acknowledgement, and that dopamine hit of resolution that no amount of pyrotechnics or confetti cannons can replicate. And just when you think you've absorbed that little nugget of satisfaction, you're hit with the next gap. If this is happening now in a stadium with this level of intentionality, what does it signal about the private conversations that are not being shown on camera? That's the sticky question that will keep you anchored to this story for the next few months, because while we don't have a crystal ball and we certainly don't deal in unconfirmed rumors, the pattern of behavior suggests that the walls that were built during the height of solo careers are finally showing some cracks. And while we might not see a physical standing next to each other on a red carpet anytime soon, according to what is being interpreted from this moment, the mental and creative space they occupy in relation to one another has undergone a seismic shift. And you have to ask yourself, in the grand scheme of a career that spans over a decade and a half, why does the validation of a former collaborator still hold such immense power over the fan experience? It's because these groups, these bands we grew up with, they don't just exist as musical entities, they exist as surrogate families that we project our own friendships and fallouts onto. And when one member of that surrogate family finally acknowledges another in a public setting without a trace of the old tension, it gives everyone permission to let go of a little bit of the anxiety they've been carrying around about it. And watching a stadium full of people react to that permission slip in real time is a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest headline isn't a new scandal or a secret project, it's just a moment of grace. And that's the kind of story that sticks to your ribs. It's not salacious, it's not controversial, it's just human. And it's a reminder that even in the most manufactured and polished corners of the entertainment industry, the thing that breaks through the noise is always the truth of a personal connection. And while we wait with bated breath to see if there is any official follow-up to this lyrical wink, and trust me, the fan accounts are on high alert like it's a military operation, we are left with this one shimmering, perfect piece of concert footage that proves that some chapters of the book aren't actually closed. They're just dog-eared, waiting for the right moment to be opened again. And if you're looking for a sign that the culture is shifting away from drama for drama's sake and towards something a little more nuanced and a little kinder, you could do a lot worse than looking at a stadium full of people crying happy tears over a single solitary name change in a song they've heard 1,000 times before, because that is the sound of a narrative being mended in real time, and frankly, it's the best thing I've heard all week.